IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners. Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Before we begin the episode, Saif and I would like to thank some of our listeners for writing to us. Mr. Srinivas Rao, Ankur, Kunal, Nidhish, Geet, Iana, Sukleen, Shiv Kumar, and Maharnab Nath. Thank you so much, guys, for all your motivation. As for today's episode, we speak with Arjun Narayanan, a traveler and a podcaster. Let's listen to the episode to find out more.
So with that introduction, I'd love to welcome Arjun Narayanan, a fellow podcaster and nostalgia nerd is what I'm calling Arjun. Arjun, thank you so much for being on the podcast and welcome.
Thank you so much, Seth. Thanks a lot.
Our pleasure to have you, Arjun. And I gave a little sneak peek to the listeners as to you being a podcaster. Why don't you speak a little bit about yourself and your podcast as well?
Thank you, Seth. So, I work in the Times of India, Chennai. I'm a journalist by profession and I run a podcast called the Madraswallah Podcast, where I share a lot of details about popular culture of the 1980s and 90s. So, it's about growing up in the 80s and 90s and what kind of popular culture we consumed at that time. Yeah, that's about the podcast. It's a lot of nostalgia, a lot of feel-good factor. And I also run a storytelling organization called Simply Stories. I run it along with my friends in Chennai. So this initiative is to keep the tradition of oral storytelling alive. We narrate stories from myths, legends, from history, and from the vast treasure trove of Indian literature across languages. So we have monthly meets and we have these hourly 1 hour storytelling sessions. So that's basically what I do.
Brilliant. And it is a very key, the oral history part of it, right? It's a key in kind of capturing what has been passed on from our previous generations and so that the future generations also get a view of that, right? I know a lot of it is written and in print and digital these days, but I feel personally that audio is also a very key component of this. So kudos on that.
True.
And yes, for the listeners who want to have like a heavy dosage of the 80s and the 90s nostalgia, I would certainly recommend the Madraswallah Podcast. Links will be in the show notes. So Arjun, now that we've had a quick view about what you do and your podcast, why don't we jump into the thick of things and ask you where you're going to take us to today?
Yes, since we spoke about history, and when we are talking about history, we are talking about tangible and intangible history. There is this city I would like to take you to, which is considered to be older than history itself. That's Varanasi, right in the heart of India, a beautiful ancient city of Varanasi, where I visited a few months back in November. And that's the place.
Brilliant. Couldn't be happier to have such a great history with so much significance, like you said, right? It's older than time, like some say it runs back into thousands of years. And on the banks of the great Ganges, right? Or Ganga, as we call it. Now, Arjun, was this, what kind of a trip was this? Was this with friends, family, solo? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So the planning of the trip happened at very short notice. I live in Chennai, so going to Varanasi requires some planning for me. It's not something I can decide overnight. So I had to do some reading, and when you're going to a city like Varanasi with so much history, you should know what you're going in for.
Definitely.
So in November last week is when I went to Varanasi last year in 2019, and I was there for 4 days. Yeah.
Cool. Just touching upon that, right, of the aspect of spirituality industry that you were calling, that's what draws most people there. It's considered, right, even in terms of being a holy site for the Hindus, what is considered is that one attains salvation or moksha by visiting Varanasi and having a dip in the holy Ganga or the Ganges, right? That's
Yes.
what that's why it's considered so important. And what the belief is in Hinduism is that by taking a dip into the holy Ganges, one kind of breaks that cycle of rebirth and attains salvation. So yeah, that's a little bit of gyan for you, the belief, the religious
Yes.
beliefs of
Yes.
Hindus and Hinduism as well. And one important thing that I found out while I was doing the reading about this was this is important not just from a perspective of Hinduism, right? What I was looking
Yes.
up was that Buddhism is considers Varanasi to be a very important spot, like we'll speak about a little bit more as well. During the course of the podcast, and even Jainism for that matter, like 4 of these Tirthankaras that Jain considered, right? 4 of the
Yes.
Tirthankaras were born in Varanasi, so that way important for the Jains as well, and not just that, but even for the Sikhs, because Guru Nanak, he was believed to have visited Varanasi for the occasion of Mahashivratri in the early 1500s, and that kind of played a big role in him founding Sikhism as well, like him being inspired by what he learned on that trip and his journeys in general. So that way, that's why I keep saying and repeating myself that it's a very religiously and spiritually significant place. So with that little bit of a background, Arjun, why don't we jump into the thick of things, right? How your experience was in Varanasi, and what are some of the things that you indulged in while you were there?
Yes, Seth. So I knew I had to visit a few places which were non-negotiable. For instance, the ghats, the main temples of Varanasi, Sarnath. These were a few sites I had in mind, and I had left the others to the flow. I thought I'll ask people and see wherever I have to go. Sarnath is one place I visited as soon as I landed up in the city, because it's 8 kilometers away from the city. I reached Varanasi by morning by train, and I stayed in a hostel at Shivala near Chet Singh Fort. So most of the older part of the city you'll have to cover by foot because vehicles take a lot of time to reach the inner arterial roads, the inner gullies. So a lot of parts of the city have to be covered by foot. The main roads you have rickshaws and rickshaw is the main public transport that you have over there. So I took an auto to Sarnath from Varanasi, which is 8 kilometers away. It took more than an hour to reach there because the traffic is pretty huge in Varanasi.
Okay.
So Sarnath is a very important site because after it is said that in Gaya, in Bihar, that's the place where Siddhartha attained enlightenment and became Gautama Buddha. So after attaining enlightenment, he came to Sarnath to deliver his first sermon. So he had a bunch of students to whom he explained the underlying philosophy of Buddhism. So it's considered to be a very sacred spot, and from across the world, especially from the Far East and Southeast Asian countries, a lot of pilgrims visit Sarnath, and every day you'll find groups of pilgrims from these countries over there.
Yep, absolutely. And like you mentioned, right, I believe it's the Deer Park in Sarnath is where Gautam Buddha, he delivered his first sermon, and this dates back to like 500 odd BCE, so over 2,500 years ago, right? So
Yes.
Wonderful. So how long did you spend there at Sarnath?
So in Sarnath, the main attraction is the museum over there. That's the first place you should go to. There's a government museum in Sarnath where a lot of relics, a lot of carvings and tablets and stone carvings are made available for the public. So you will find the Ashoka pillar from which our national emblem has been taken, and many such images over there. Buddhist images that date back to the Gandhara School of Art, and several millennia old sculptures you'll find there, several centuries old, several millennia old. So it's very interesting to see how these have still been preserved. Spot where the sermon was delivered, the stupa, that's another major attraction where people go and spend time. A lot of people meditate there. They circumambulate the stupa. They go around it in reverence. And the remains are there. You can find the remains of the old monasteries over there.
Okay, brilliant. I think that's a great start also. Did you spend more time at Sarnath going to other places?
No, so I returned after that. In fact, I used the same auto to return because I wasn't sure of public transport. So I asked the person to wait, and I went back in the same auto, and I got down at my hostel, and it happened to be a Tuesday, the day I had reached there. So someone told me you should go to Sankat Motion Temple, that is somewhere near BHU itself. So it's in a place called Lanka. So I wasn't sure because I don't like extremely crowded places, and being a Tuesday, the temple would have been definitely a lot more crowded than usual. So there's something nice that the person staying in the hostel told me. He said you'll feel it is a crowd when you are trying to go against the wave. You go with the wave, you'll be a part of it, and then you won't realize you're in the middle of a crowd. So in Sankat Mochen Temple, all the temples of Varanasi are heavily guarded. There's heavy security because they have faced terrorist threats in the past. And Sankat Mochen Temple especially had faced bombings in 2006. But except for, there is security, there is checking. You'll have to deposit your cell phone in a locker in all the temples. That's the norm over there. So it's better if you can travel without a cell phone, but I guess it's not possible for most people today. Carry minimum items when you're stepping out of your hostel. Don't carry heavy bags wherever you're going, because you'll have to deposit most of these things in lockers if you're visiting temples.
And this is a Hanuman temple, right? If I'm not wrong, Arjun?
Yes, this is a Hanuman temple. It is several centuries old, over 500 years old, set in the time of Goswami Tulsidas, a contemporary of Akbar. So this is Tulsidas is supposed to have had the darshan of Hanuman here after he wrote Ramcharitmanas, the Awadhi version of Ramayana. So in fact, the entire ambience of Sankat Mochen Temple is soaked in the lyrics of Ramcharitmanas. On the walls of the temple, you will find the Sundarkand of Ramcharitmanas inscribed, and people will be seen reading the Sundarkand or the Hanuman Chalisa throughout the day. And in the evening, when I went, there was one Akhand Sankirtan that was going on. It was the ambience was totally different. You just need to be there to experience it. Those who are not heavily religious also, these are moments when you really feel touched by what's happening around you. And Sankat Mochen is in that sense a very, very beautiful experience. It's a very small temple, not a very huge one, but it's a very beautiful place.
Absolutely. And it's probably a little unique also in the sense that a lot of the temples that you might have, the other temples that you might have gone and visited in Varanasi are probably like Shiva temples or Vishnu temples. So this one stands out that it's a Hanuman temple.
It's a very important Vaishnavite site in that sense. As you said, a lot of other temples are important sites of Shaiva worship and Shakta worship. But Sankat Mochen stands out for being a very important Vaishnavite center in India.
Very interesting. So that's wonderful. So was that did all that take up almost the second half of the day for you, like till the evening?
Yes. So that the day was almost over by the end of the visit to Sankat Mochen Temple, because the temple closes by, I think, 8:45 or 9. I'm not very sure. But by that time I had left the place.
Okay.
So the next day I was told that you have to visit Kashi Vishwanath temple opens pretty early. I think by 4 o'clock it opens. The timings really depend on the season. So, summers and winters have different timings. So, there is something called Mangal Aarti that happens very early in the morning, and you need to book a ticket online if you want to visit the Mangal Aarti. You will even get it over the counter, but I didn't want the first. So, but I went after the Aarti was over, just after the Aarti was over. And again, I was not aware of this mobile phone having to be deposited. So there are so many shops selling flowers and puja samagri there. Shopkeepers will really ask you to, leave your stuff there and buy something from them. But it's better if you leave. There are government-approved locker rooms, so you can leave your items in the locker rooms of the government. That will be better.
Yeah, I think something to consider, right? Especially when you're going to these crowded places without planning. If you carry a lot of stuff with you, like backpacks or whatever, it might be a little bit of a hassle. So, like Arjun was mentioning, try and travel as light as possible, and even the mobile phones. Try to use up the government lockers just for the safety bit of it, right? And as you said at the beginning, these days it's I think close to impossible to travel without a mobile phone, unless and obviously if it's a completely religious visit and you don't even want to capture like pictures or videos or whatever. In that case, perhaps you can leave it behind wherever you're living, but otherwise just make use of these other lockers and government facilities that are there. Now, Kashi Vishwanath Temple, one of the most important temples in the region as well. Why don't you speak a little bit about the temple and your experience there?
Yeah, so there's a very beautiful story associated with Shiva in Varanasi. So it is said that until Shiva got married, he was living in Kailash in the Himalayas, and after he got married, he had to come to the city and lead the life of a householder. So he chose Varanasi. So there are people who say we do not know whether Varanasi is holy because Shiva came and lived here, or Shiva chose Varanasi because it was already holy. So the city is considered to be that beautiful that nobody knows why is it special. Is it beautiful because Shiva is here, or Shiva chose it because it's beautiful? And there's this legend of the king called Divodas who used to rule Varanasi. So for some reason Shiva went back to Kailash, and this king called Divodas came to rule Varanasi. And after some time, the reign was very good, and people were happy, and there was prosperity all over. But after a while, Shiva and Parvati were itching to get back to Varanasi, and they didn't know how to go back because there was this great king who was already ruling there. So one by one, Shiva started sending various deities. He sent the Chauset Yoginis, he sent Ganesh and a lot of other people to the king to explain to him as to why he should hand over the city back to Shiva. But they came here and they forgot the purpose of their visit, because the city was that beautiful. So one by one, all the deities came here. They forgot why they came here, and they just stayed there. And Brahma came there one day, and he organized 10 Ashwamedha Yagas over there. It's a horse sacrifice.
Right. Yep.
So it is the spot where the horse sacrifice happened is supposed to be the Dashashwamedh Ghat, which is one of the primary ghats in Varanasi, where the main arti of the evening happens.
Sure.
And finally, of course, the city was handed over to Shiva, and Divodasa's name is attached, with the history of Varanasi itself. And this is called the city of Shiva. The Shiva is virtually the king of Varanasi, and it's not really a relationship of God and devotee over there. People have a very personal relationship with Shiva. You can see it almost everywhere. And Kashi Vishwanath Temple, of course, is one of the oldest hallmarks of that relationship.
Absolutely. And it's believed to be even appearance-wise, very, very different from some of the other temples you might have seen, right? This is the temple that has golden dome and golden spires as well, right?
Yes. So the current structure that you see in Varanasi, the current temple was constructed by the Queen of Indore, if I'm right, called Ahilyabai Holkar. Yep. So she constructed the Kashi Vishwanath temple and several other ghats of Varanasi as well. And the Golden Dome, if I'm right, was donated by Maharaja Ranjit Singh. I'm not very sure of that, but I think Maharaja Ranjit Singh is the one who donated it.
That's correct. But I think it was the spires that was donated by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and the dome was by Rani Ahilyabai Holkar, like you mentioned. I think that's what it is, but it might be one way or the other. But either way, I think the important point here is that both of these great personalities have been involved with the Kashi Vishwanath temple as well. And another important point is that it's also considered one of the 12 Jyotirlingas, right? Very important holy sites that are spread across India.
Yes.
So all of these facts just add up and kind of give you a view of how important the Kashi Vishwanath temple is. So did you spend time here during the Aarti, or how was your visit here?
So I went after the Aarti. I had a very good time there. I spent a few minutes inside the temple. There was enough time to meditate and spend some quality time over there. There are few temples that are linked to Vishwanath, and they say that no visit to Vishwanath is complete without visiting these places. The one is of Kal Bhairav, who is supposed to be the guardian deity of Varanasi. So there is security in all the temples of Varanasi. There is police and you'll find checking. But the only temple where there is no security is Kal Bhairav, because he's the guardian deity of Varanasi. He's guarding Varanasi himself. The Kotwal of the city, they say. So they say Kotwal ke ghar mein you don't need a police.
Chaukidar ka kya kam Kotwal ke ghar mein.
That's the belief. And the second important place is of Annapurna. So the legend is that Shiva, under a curse, had lost all his power, and he was seen begging from door to door. And Parvati assumed the form of Annapurna and fed him and all those people who were hungry along with him. So Parvati is in the form of the all-giving mother, the woman who feeds Shiva. So the imagery of Parvati feeding Shiva is all over Banaras. So the imagery of Annapurna is very strong. And another temple that's very close by is of Vishalakshi, which is again a very important center of Shakti worship, of the worship of Mother Goddess. And a lot of South Indian pilgrims especially go there because Kashi Vishalaksh's name is taken along with Madurai Meenakshi and Kanchi Kamakshi. So they complete the triangle.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's great. And yeah, like you mentioned even about the Annapurna temple, right? It is the goddess Annapurna. It's believed like she's the goddess of nourishment or food, basically,
Yes.
right? That's the significance of it. And I think it was this temple that was kind of constructed by or like funded by Peshwa Bajirao
Yes,
the first, right?
yes.
So that way also, I believe Marathas had a very big hand in kind of construction of a lot of the temples and the religious structures you see around Varanasi.
Yes,
So,
a lot of
yeah.
temples, a lot of the ghats. The Maratha contribution is very huge in Varanasi.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then just going back to the temples, right? You said the Vishalakshi temple was one of the related temples that you saw too.
Yes.
Any other points of interest or religious significance here that you visited, Arjun?
So it is considered to be a Shakti Peeth. Shakti Peeth is a place where there's this legend of story of Sati and Shiva, where Sati's body burnt and Sudarshan Chakra of Vishnu cut it into several pieces. So one of the parts of Sati is supposed to have fallen here. It's supposed to be the eyes of Sati, which is why it's called Vishalakshi. So Akshu basically means eyes. So the eyes of the Mother Goddess is supposed to have fallen here. That is the belief. Another belief is that the earrings of the Mother Goddess fell here, which is why you have the ghat is called Manikarnika Ghat, where the earrings of the goddess fell. So there are many legends associated with the Manikarnika Ghat and how Vishnu propitiated Shiva and he appeared here, and the Manikarnika Kund is a very holy spot. But what is Manikarnika today remembered most is for the burning ghats, and
Right.
there are two primary burning ghats in Varanasi. There are daily walk, what do you call, heritage walk packages that you find in the city, where you'll be taken through all these places. If you want to go through these heritage walks, you can go. They'll take you to a lot of places, and they already have prior permission to go to a lot of places.
Right. I think these heritage walks are a great way of exploring cities and such religiously significant places. So definitely do sign up for those. And after spending some time here, like quickly going back to the Manikarnika Ghat also, right? It's a very significant ghat in the sense that it's considered one of the two burning ghats. I think the other one was Harishchandra Ghat.
Ghat, yeah. So actually, if you want to really visit the ghats, get an idea about the ghats of Varanasi, there is a proper boat ride that starts early in the morning. So in 1.5 2 hours, they cover all the ghats of Varanasi. So they start from Assi Ghat and go right up to Raj Ghat and come back. So that's something. I think at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock there is an Aarti at Assi Ghat. You can see the Aarti, and there are boatmen who are willing to take you to these places. I went to all these places with the help of the hostel manager where I was staying. So all the people who were staying in the hostel, they were put into one boat basically, and we went on this ride. So starting from Assi Ghat, basically it's the final ghat of Varanasi, and there is some program on Assi Ghat called Subha Banaras. That's a very famous program that's been started by the government. You have early morning aarti, there is a havan, and there is classical music program, and then there is a yoga camp. So these things happen, and they get over by around 7 o'clock.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, as you mentioned, that's a great way of, like they say, right, killing two birds with one stone, because getting an experience of taking a boat ride on the Ganges is something on its own, and how significant Ganges is to the history of Varanasi also, right?
Yes.
Because actually, if you look at it, the etymology also of Varanasi, it's named after the two tributaries of Ganges, which is Varuna and the other one was Assi,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, these are the two tributaries of Ganges after which Varanasi is named. So that way, taking a boat ride is really significant, and you can probably get even a better return on your time and investment on this by visiting these different ghats, right? And I believe it's also possible to take or experience the aartis just sitting in the boats, right? Because some of my friends I know did that too, because usually the ghats get really crowded during the aartis. So one option is also to choose a good time that you can experience these aartis just sitting in the boat, which takes you pretty close to the ghat, I'm sure. So how was your experience like? Did you spend some time looking at the aarti as well while on the boat ride, or did you do this separately, Arjun?
No, I went early in the morning. We started our boat ride even before sunrise. So when the sun was rising, we were right in the middle of Ganga, and it was really surreal experience. And trust me, I think it was one of the most beautiful sunrises I've seen in my life. Because on one side it was Varanasi, on the other side it was Ramnagar, and it was beautiful. It was the words fail to describe how really incredible that moment was. So you start from Assi and you go through various ghats like the Tulsi Ghat. Tulsi Ghat is where Tulsidas ji is supposed to have lived when he wrote Ramcharitmanas, and the ghat is named after him. And few years back, the original manuscript of Ramcharitmanas was stolen, and they recovered it later. But this is the family of the people who safeguard the Sankanmochan temple. I think they live here, and the original manuscript I think is taken out now only during Dashera when the Ram Leela happens. That's the only time when that manuscript is taken out. So after that, there's also there's a Kabir festival that happens there. It's called Guleria Ghat. So the Mahendra Kabir festival. Kabir is another important personality associated with Varanasi.
Sure.
So many great artists have been born in that one neighborhood where Kabir lived, for Kabir Chowra. So Tulsi that festival also happens here. And from Tulsi Ghat you keep going, there's the Harishchandra Ghat, which is a burning ghat again. So there are two, as you said, there are two burning ghats, Manikarnika and Harishchandra. So Harishchandra Ghat is where, suppose, the belief is Raja Harishchandra served as the servant of the Dome Raja over here. So the legend of Raja Harishchandra is associated with this ghat. And you'll find several landmarks of Varanasi as you take this boat ride. If you have a nice boatman, he'll tell you what is what, and he'll give you a brief history of all these places. So it's pretty interesting that way. There is also a very important hotel called Brijrama. It's supposed to be the most expensive hotel in Varanasi. So I think a night over there costs around 20,000 rupees or so. I don't know, because you get the view of a Ganga from the rooms over there. So yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting that even in a very spiritual place like this, right, where money would not be considered one of the most important things, there is a price for everything.
Exactly. In fact, the hotel it was a palace before. It was a 19th century palace, and it was converted to a hotel, and it had an elevator way back in, say, 1918 itself. It had an elevator inside. So yeah, it's a pretty posh place.
Very interesting. We can call it a heritage hotel of sorts, I guess.
Yes,
but yeah,
definitely.
if you're up for it and you can afford it, definitely do consider this out. But how much time did this boat ride taking you around the ghats take, Arjun?
It took me 1.5 hours to 1.5 hours. Okay. Yeah, it basically depends on the boatman. Some of them just do a very quick thing. Otherwise, we were taken on the opposite island also, from where we could see Varanasi. So it was a proper panoramic view that we got of the city from that island. So they take you to up to Rajghat, and then they ride you back. So you see Manikarnika Ghat, you see the Shashwamedh Ghat, and all the important places. Now the thing is, there is an importance for each ghat. There are several rituals which are associated with these ghats. Some ghats are meant for the last rites. Some ghats are meant for bathing. Some ghats are so there's some significance or the other for each of them.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a good way also to cover off a lot of these ghats, because otherwise if you're just considering walking, even though you might be able to do it, it will just take a lot more time, right? Covering all of them.
Actually, a lot of people walk, because you can all the ghats are connected by these flight of stairs. So you can actually walk if you have the time, and the weather is good, means you can easily walk from one ghat to the other. That's not a problem. But yeah, you should be having the luxury of time for that. Otherwise,
exactly.
A boat ride is a very good thing. And boat ride is also a very humbling experience, because you see death and suddenly life and then again death. It's as if Varanasi celebrates this whole cycle of life and death, and it's almost metaphorically right in front of you. And because of which I think death is a subject that is not very unnerving for people in Varanasi. They see it on a daily basis. You see funeral processions. There are so many old people who go to Varanasi to spend their last moments there. So it's a very normal thing, matter of fact thing. So that's a new revealing experience for an outsider like me and you, but not for someone who's living there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also like a little bit of the spiritual aspect of the city also in one way, right? Because in one way, death is celebrated there because like people consider that there's no better place to die than Varanasi, right?
Yes.
So that way, like you mentioned, I think I did read about this also, like there is a hostel where people actually, like older people who are close to death, they come and stay there, right?
Exactly. You can stay there, and I think if you there is a time period until which you can stay, then you have to leave. So so people who are very critically ill and people who feel there are many vridhashrams there, and there are many such institutions over there where old people live. But yeah, there are. This is basically a place where they say if you die, you find salvation. That is the belief over there. You find freedom from the cycle of birth and death.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, two very important components of Varanasi, right? Like really integral parts of Varanasi are these ghats, the Ganges, like we mentioned, and obviously the aartis that you see on the ghats. Those are also very important, like you said. Aartis happen through the day, so you probably have to get a handle of when they're happening to make sure you're there on time. And I believe, like literally starting off before sunset through end of the day that aartis go on. Where did you choose to experience one of these aartis, Arjun, if I may ask?
Our aartis happen in the morning and evening, around the time of sunrise and sunset. These are the two times when aartis happen, and from what I understand, all the ghats have aartis, but some of them will have just one person standing and doing the aarti, and some ghats have very elaborate rituals. Like the Dashashwamedh Ghat has a very, very elaborate aarti. So it's also considered to be the most special aarti. Most of the postcard images of Varanasi that you see are from the Dashashwamedh Ghat. So it sees a huge crowd, and if you go well in advance, say you reach there by 5:30. Much before the aarti, you'll get a good spot. You can see it. It's in fact a better experience to sit in the ghat and see the aarti than sit on the boat. So I would recommend sitting in the ghat, and it goes on for 45 minutes.
Okay, yeah, definitely, because you're looking at it from much more close quarters, and yeah, just for perhaps people who might not have an understanding of what the aarti is, it's basically like lighting a diya or a bunch of diyas, right?
Yes.
Which are held using a diya handle, and you're offering the flame or the light, you're offering that to a god. And a lot of rituals and songs and hymns are actually done by the pujaris there when they do the aartis. That's what it is, and it's a beautiful, beautiful sight for someone who hasn't seen this on the banks of the Ganges. It's a completely different energy in the atmosphere also, right, when these important prayers are being said.
Yes, so the aartis are more or less a means of thanksgiving to the river, because the river is sustaining the life, and the lives of people in Varanasi are very, very interwoven with that of Ganga. So it's an overwhelming feeling when you see this sense of gratitude overflowing from all sides. So the faith that people have in the river, and the river that has been nourishing them for several millennia, all that coming together is a very beautiful feeling, accompanied by the clanging of bells and the fragrance of the incense and the chants and the songs. It's an experience that you should definitely have once in your life.
Absolutely, a different kind of a high, if I can say that. I mean, no offense, but it's a very different atmosphere there. Yeah,
for sure. And foreigners definitely. The sad part is, a lot of people do try to cheat the foreigners here and there. That happens all over the country, because when you see a foreign tourist,
right,
that problem is. But if you understand the significance of this, do explain it to them, those who are there around you, because they will be more than eager to have a conversation with you. They like to know a lot about this. And you'll be surprised, a lot of foreigners have been here for several years. They have chosen to live in Varanasi, or they visit Varanasi every year.
Absolutely. I think that way also, it's a confluence not just of like people from different walks of life, even from literally you have people from different parts of India, then you have these different foreigners who come there.
Yes.
Everyone seeking that. I think that peace of mind, that the spirituality is basically what they're all seeking.
Yes.
Yeah, and from here on, like we've covered a lot of the important aspects in terms of the ghats, the artis, and the temples. What else did you spend time doing in Varanasi?
So after you visit the ghats and you go on a boat ride and you feel you have covered so much in a day, and it's just 7:30 in the morning. So there's a lot to do, right? So there are plenty of options to eat in Varanasi, around the Sea Ghat, around the market, around the chalk. So depending on where you are, you just have to do a little bit of searching on what are the good places to eat there. I can just tell you where all I went, but I'm sure there are a lot more places than what I have covered. So there's this place called Ram Bandar, which is really amazing place where you get different kinds of kachoris and jalebis, and there is a blue lassi shop which is again near Annapurna temple. And at the chalk there is a place called Dwarka Milk Bahar. So there you get a preparation called Makhan Malayo. It is something that you get only in the months of winter. It's a dairy preparation. It's a beautiful. It's an amazing drink. Near IIT, there's something. Near BHU, there is something called Pahalwan Lassi, and again, one of the best lassis I've had in my life. Though people say the best lassi that you find is in Ramnagar. They say, I don't know how far these things are true. They say you tilt the glass, the lassi will not come down because it's that thick.
That heavy, that rich.
Yeah. And there's an entire market called the Kachori Gali. So it's known for its. So there are this plenty of. So what Banarasi Kachori is basically, more or less, it looks like puri. They call it Banarasi. They call it Kachori, but it looks more or less like puri, and it's served with aloo and palak ki sabzi. So it's called Raswale Aloo. So this is a very important specialty of Varanasi, and everywhere, all over the city, you'll find makeshift shops serving Banarasi Kachori and Raswale Aloo. So basically, you take a bath in the Ganga, you offer your prayers in various temples, and on your way back home, you are already hungry. You don't have to wait till you go home. You munch on these snacks and breakfast items that are being served all over the city, and it's truly a delight. You don't really have to be specific about which shop, and they are all very, very cheap. In I think 50 rupees, 30 rupees, you can easily have a good breakfast.
Absolutely. And yeah, like you said, kachori sabji is very unique to Varanasi or Banaras in that way, right? Now, having kind of feasted on some of these local delicacies here, what did you get on to for the rest of the day?
So there are some really good bookshops in Varanasi. One is called Indica. It's on the way to the Kashi Vishwanath temple itself. It's in the Marketer Chowk itself. And another one is called Harmony. It's near Asi Ghat. And there are a couple of more bookshops like Annapurna Book House and others. But these were some of the bookstores I visited because I wanted to buy a few books on Varanasi and a few mementos and a few gifts that I could buy for people. And the one book on Banaras that I would really recommend is Banaras, the City of Light by Diana Ek. So that's a nice book. And there's also another book called Bana Rahe Banaras by Vishwanath Mukherjee. It's a Hindi book. So if you can read Hindi, it's a nice book to opt for.
Okay, definitely. And yeah, even going back historically, right, Banaras has had a very rich literary tradition also in terms of some of the great names that have come out of Banaras, right?
Yes.
Like renowned writers or even philosophers to some extent, right? Like you mentioned at the beginning as well, Kabir, Ravidas, Tulsidas, all of these people. And even in more recent histories, somebody like Munshi Premchand, is from this part of the country. So that way also, it has a rich literary history.
So Munshi Premchand's name is associated with Banaras, of course, and we all have read Premchand in school. So he's a familiar name. But there are other greats like, say, Bhartendu Harishchandra. He's one of the greatest writers of modern Hindi literature. And he was a trendsetter in Hindi prose writing.
Interesting. And not just the literary piece of it, right? Even in terms of the culture and arts, basically, right? In terms of music or things like that. Varanasi has been like really, really rich that way. Just going back to, say, music, for example, right? People like Bismillah Khan or Pandit Ravi Shankar, all of these people either were from here or spent significant amounts of times here. So that way also you probably had a chance to kind of touch upon that, right? Some of the rich culture of the place.
Yes. There are many music festivals that happen in Varanasi, and there is a reason why music is so deeply embedded in the city. The entire place called Kabir Chowra, that itself gave birth to so many greats of Indian classical music like Pandit Kishan Maharaj, Sitara Devi, Gopi Krishna, Pandit Ram Sahai Mishra, Rajan Sajan Mishra. They are all from this one area called Kabir Chowra. So maybe there is something to that place that gave birth to so many great artists of our time. And secondly, through the year, there are several music festivals. So you can either plan your visit according to these things if you're a very big fan of Indian classical music, or you can just see if something is happening when you're there, because a lot of jam sessions happen, and jam, I mean Indian classical jam itself. So so a lot of students, the BHU organizes many such fests. Every day at Assi Ghat there are music performances. There are a lot of schools of Indian classical music where people learn music, and sometimes they allow you to sit and watch, but you'll have to inquire about that over there. But primarily there is a Sankat Mochan Music Festival in April, is very famous. Then there is something called Drupad Mela that happens on Tulsi Ghat in the month of February. Then there is Ganga Mahotsav that happens in November, and the Kabir festival that I already spoke about, that happens in the month of December. And so these are the primary people, especially the Drupad Mela is pretty big. People actually travel to Varanasi to listen to artists during the Drupad Mela. And UP Tourism Board itself organizes some music festivals in Varanasi. So yes, and many greats do come to Varanasi at that time. Especially Dashera and Diwali are two occasions when the city sees a very, very huge crowd. So especially Dev Deepavali, which comes a few days after Deepavali, which is when all the ghats of Varanasi are completely lit up, because they say it is the Diwali. Diwali is for human beings and Dev Deepavali is for the deities, for the gods.
Right. Yeah, I think a very unique thing to Varanasi also, right? Because even I first heard of this just about the Dev Deepavali from another guest on the podcast. So very important aspect. These festivals also, like you mentioned, might be a good occasion to visit, right? You're not just getting the flavor of the spiritual aspect of the city, but you're also getting like the rich culture and the heritage of the place in terms of music and all of that. So do plan your visit accordingly if you want to kind of experience some of these festivals. And like you touched upon, BHU seems to have a lot of these music festivals, right? And BHU in itself is such a kind of a significant or such an iconic university, right? Considered one of the biggest universities in Asia, not just India. So did you manage to stop by at BHU as well, Arjun?
Yes, I went to BHU. So it has got like a lot of other places in Varanasi, it has got its own beautiful history. Started by Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, who was a great freedom fighter as well in 1915. So the main attraction, there are two basic attractions over there. One is that they have a model of the Kashi Vishwanath temple inside the campus itself. So a lot of people go there because it's not a very crowded temple. So a lot of people go to the Kashi Vishwanath temple inside the BHU campus as well. But Banaras Hindu University has another attraction called Bharat Kala Kendra. It's a museum, and the entry ticket and all is pretty cheap. So you can see the entire history of art in India inside the museum, and it's a pretty well-maintained museum.
Absolutely. And again, different aspect of sorts, right, to a lot of the things that we have been doing over the past or discussing over the past half hour or so. And also just moving away from kind of the huge university campus to some of the narrow lanes and alleys of Banaras also, right?
Yes.
Because those are also very popular. You literally get lost in a maze in terms of how narrow and intricate, and literally it takes you back into almost a different world. Right. So did you spend time kind of going through them? Yeah.
Yeah, so the place where I stayed, the hostel was inside one of those gullies. I lived in the old city only. I stayed in the old city, so I got a proper feel of the old city, and it is amazing. There are problems, you are walking, a cow will come from one side, there will be a cycle behind you, you wouldn't know where to go. Those things are there, but that's all the part of the quirks of the city, and it's amazing in its own way. And a person like me who's poor with directions, it can be a nightmare. That is another thing. So I really had to rely on maps, and I also asked people around as to how to go. And people are extremely helpful in the city. I mean, I found one of the most helpful bunch that I've come across in life in Varanasi. So while there are people who might be trying to take advantage of tourists, there are several hundred more people, out there willing to help you out. So it's an amazing city that way. There are people willing to show you directions, tell you where to visit. They'll ask you what you like, and accordingly recommend places to visit also. So yeah, it's nice that way. And if you're going to a hostel or any hotel that you're staying, most of these managers are trained to recommend places to you, and they'll make arrangements also for you. If you are going with a family, or if you're going by yourself, of course, there are many more options to explore. But they know what to take, because they've been doing this for ages, and everyone over there is an expert in handling tourists. Be it the silk sari, they know where all to take you to, the silk sari market, the temples, the ghats. They know what we are looking for, and they really appreciate tourists because they know Varanasi is running on tourism in a big way, and they respect that fact. So we are people like us are always welcome.
Absolutely. And the quick references you made, right, to the silk saris or the Banarsi saris, as they're popularly known. In fact, I think UP has the GI tag as well for these Banarsi saris with this beautiful silk and the zari, or the brocades as we call them, right?
Yes.
Very, very popular. I mean, if Faza was there today on this episode, she would have probably been gushing about these Banarasi saris. But yes, very important part of the culture and the tradition of Varanasi or Banaras, right? So that's something you can perhaps spend too, because the tradition of these saris that literally ages back to centuries, because these have been produced in Banaras for a long time. The silk industry is like really been on the forefront. So for a very long time, it's not something that has crept up in the past few years after globalization, right?
Definitely, the silk industry is pretty ancient in Banaras, and there is also UP Government's Cottage Emporium is also there on Nasi Ghat, so you can try that because it's a government outlet. You can get good stuff there.
Okay, yeah, so definitely you'd expect authentic stuff to be sold at the government kind of authorized outlets, so right, definitely check those out as well. And while we discuss the little quirks of Banaras, how can we forget about the Banarasi pan, or
yes.
pan Banaraswallah?
Yes. Right? So yes, of course, Amitabh Bachchan has made it famous all over the world with the song. But Banarasi pan is something they take a lot of pride in. People make it a part of their daily life, because you find find these pan shops at every nook and corner, and there are these tambul bhandars known for serving different kinds of pan, but Banaras is known for the Magai pan, which they say it melts in your mouth the moment you put it into your mouth. So you can be very specific about what you want, but if you're a newbie, you don't know much about pans, they'll give you what is best for you.
Yeah, and I'm sure Kaike pan Banaraswala khul jaye band akal ka.
Definitely, yeah. So you should be very specific whether you want tobacco or not. No tobacco, because if it is tobacco, then band akal ka tala will be open.
Exactly, and there's actually no dearth of those things also, right? I know it's very spiritual and all of that.
Yes.
In one way, it's another aspect of Banaras also, right? People who want to try out bhang, for example, or chillam and get high, right? This is the different kind of high.
I wasn't able to try out any of those things because I was traveling alone and didn't want to take much risk. But there are government authorized outlets where they sell bhang, so that you get good stuff. So you'll find it all over the place. There'll be people coming and approaching you. If you want to be adventurous, yes, sure, you should try it out.
Yeah, some little bit of thrill and adventure there as well. There's a lot of ways in Banaras to get high, right?
Yes,
Not just
yes.
the religious and spiritual kind of high, but the other kinds of high as well.
Yes, yes. It's called Babaji ki booty over there.
Exactly, Babaji ki booty. And yeah, a lot of Babajis also, right? I mean, obviously, you probably have the handful of fake Babajis also, but a lot of sadhus also is what you might encounter.
Yes, yes. You'll find many sadhus and many of them, many fake people, many people who are just, it's a costume for some of them, that's it. But there are people who have gone in serious pursuit and they are very silent. They go about their life and daily routine very silently. But the real Naga sadhus are not there right now. They come only at the time of Kumbh Mela in these holy towns. And there is a complete plethora of talent over there in terms of musicians, because there is this boatman called Bhumi Nishad, I think his name is. He sings as he rows the boat in the morning, and it's beautiful. It's like what you hear in these old Hindi films where a boatman will be singing and you'll be sitting on the boat and traveling with him. It's that kind of experience. And some boatmen even have instrumentalists, so there'll be sitar players on the boat when you go with them. So you have all kinds of. It's an eclectic mix, yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful concoction, is all I can say, right? Of different people, of different cultures, of, like you mentioned at the beginning, 2 words are not enough. Probably videos are not enough. Probably the podcast is not enough.
Yes,
you have to
yes.
go there and kind of live it, right? Live the experience out to understand it fully. But yeah, thank you for touching on so many important and so many varied aspects of Varanasi or Banaras. Was there more to your trip? Like, was there more spots that you covered?
No, see,
Arjun?
they say, on one trip to Varanasi, what you should do is you should go and see where all you should spend more time next time. So one trip is not enough to see the entire city. So there were a lot of places where I thought, okay, next time when I come here, I should go and visit this place. Like the fort of Ramnagar, I couldn't go there. That's where the Maharaja of Varanasi lives. Then the Ramnagar is Dashera. The Ramnagar's Ramlila is very famous. There are many beautiful documentaries that have been made on the Ramleelas that are organized in Ramnagar. Ramnagar is just across the Ganga. It's a part of Varanasi itself, but it's just across the Ganga. So the Bharat Milap, which is the episode of Ramayana where Bharat and Ram meet on the 9th, I think it's on the 9th or 10th day of the performance of Ramleela. It's a very, very important event, and people come from different parts of the country to visit, to witness that episode of Ramleela. And it's beautiful. I think that's something I would like to see next time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, thank you for kind of giving us a flavor of your trip, right? As even you mentioned, one trip is never enough. But thank you for kind of giving us a quick recap of that whole trip and giving us some of the flavor of what one can experience while in Banaras or while in Varanasi. And I'd just like to kind of conclude this episode by saying some of the cliched words of the famous author Mark Twain. He had mentioned that Banaras is older than history, older than tradition, and older even than any legend. And it looks twice as old as all of these put together. So I think
yes.
That kind of encapsulates what Banaras is. But thank you so much for taking us on this wonderful journey to such a significant place, literally the spiritual capital of India, right? Thank you so much, Arjun.
Thank you so much, Saif. It's my pleasure to be here on Musafir Stories, and I'm a regular listener. And all the best to you guys.
That was yet another great episode of the Musafir Stories. If you guys like the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Audioboom, Savan, Pocket Casts, Castbox, Stitcher, or any other podcasting app available on iOS or Android. Please do leave us a review on iTunes. It goes a long way in the show's discoverability. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We go by the handle The Musafir Stories. Or, if it suits you, you could email us at themusafirstories@gmail.com or visit our website at www.themusafirstories.com for more information. All of these links will be made available in the show notes section of each episode. So here's to more traveling, sharing, and inspiring. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, happy travels and goodbye.